Ladies and gents, welcome back to another Engineers podcast. Today I'm joined by Danielle Leong, who is CTO of FireHydrant. She boasts an incredible background, likes of GitHub and Twilio as an early engineer. We've actually had some folks that she's worked with in the past on the podcast and are going to be speaking to on the podcast. FireHydrant are building best in market incident management tool. We're going to be talking about some pretty awesome things in today's episode about really building scalable products and systems in the incident management space. So, interesting discussions around build versus buy and building enterprise ready features and diving into some of those technical challenges. I'm going to give the mic to Danielle to give a bit of an intro into her background, and Fire Hydrant's elevator pitch. So, Danielle, thanks for coming to join us. How are you?
I'm doing all right, Elliot. Thanks for having me today.
Yeah, pleasure. Pleasure. So, tell us a little bit about you and talk to us a little bit about the GitHub and Twilio experience as well.
Sure. So let's see. I have been at Fire Hydrant for just under a year. I'm coming up on my 1 year anniversary. It's been a pretty exciting time. I've been able to do a ton of things in my career that I have always wanted to try. All sorts of things that the teams that I want to build, the types of engineering organizations that I want to build. So it's been really exciting to be able to join a type of company that not only allows me to do it, but is really excited to have me here and build all sorts of fun and exciting enterprise tooling. So I've been here for about a year. Before this, I was at a very early stage startup pre-seed. I was the number one hire there. And then before that, I spent 6 years over at GitHub building out the identity and access management team. So I was in charge of authentication, authorization, and being able to use enterprise managed users. So I was there at GitHub for 6 years. And then before that, I was an early engineer over at Twilio. I believe I was engineer number 50 or something like that. So really exciting times being able to start off my career in a fast-paced, pretty hectic environment. I believe we were Series B when I joined Twilio. So that was really one of the most hectic, exciting times. And I think that it really started my love for being in a startup, being able to ship things, being able to build things that had actual tangible customer value, and being really close to the product and being able to see how it affects people. So my time there has really sort of shaped my entire career going forward.
Love that. There are a couple of nuggets that I'll actually come back to later on in the podcast that we'll unravel. We'll talk a little bit more about. Let's focus on Fire Hydrant. Tell us who Fire Hydrant are and the problem space that you're in and what you're trying to solve for customers.
Yeah. Yeah. So Fire Hydrant is an incident management and alerting platform. So if you have ever had any sort of software incident, and so anytime there is a software incident or outage, they are two separate things. You need to have the people in the right room to be able to diagnose the problem. You need to make sure that you are coordinating with your go-to-market team to make sure that key customers are kept up to date. You need to make sure that your public messaging and your internal messaging is all up to date. You need to make sure that your stakeholders all have the right information. And you need to make sure that the engineers and the folks who are actually fixing the problem have the ability to focus and make sure that they're getting the right information in the right shape in order to solve the problem as quickly as possible. And then also learn from the issues that happened before. So we have two different products right now. We have Signals, which is our alerting platform. It's a PagerDuty competitor. So you can set up any of the alerts that your teams needs, figure out what the correct escalation policy is, and then send it on off to that person or that team. And then if it does turn into an incident, all of that information is still in the same system. You can open up an incident from there and be able to remediate the situation as quickly as possible. So it's all an all-in-one alerting and incident management platform, so that you can fix the problem as quickly as possible and get on to building the rest of the things that you need to build.
Love it. I think some companies are really indexed on observability, incident management in the last 5 years. I think some have forgotten about it. Your product is targeted towards the enterprise market. I'm really looking forward to actually how enterprises are actually integrating your product into some of what they're doing in the software that we're building.
hmm Yeah, it's been kind of exciting to be in this space because observability and incident management has really grown in the last couple of years. I think that it was a lot more popular in maybe smaller developer focused companies who are very close to the technology. Who understand that outages definitely happen, incidents definitely happen, and making sure that you are prepared, making sure that you have the playbooks and the run books that you need in order to be successful, and just being prepared for if and when the worst were to happen. The faster you are to be able to remediate that situation with the amount of transparency and trust that your customers need, the better you are going to be able to recover from these types of incidents. Customer trust is really the most important currency that you have in enterprise software. And if you are able to handle an incident with grace, with transparency, with proactive communication to your customers, they're always going to remember that. They're always going to know that, okay, this company is going to take care of us. They know their stuff. They know that if something happens, they've got the right people in the room, and they're able to communicate with us so that we always know where we stand with them. And so I think that this is something that really is table stakes for anybody who provides any sort of service. Things will happen, but you need to make sure that you are prepared and that you have the ability to recover as quickly and as gracefully as possible.
Yeah, spot on. Can we talk about build versus buy? Because I know this is a subject that you're passionate about, but I think especially in this space, I'm keen to understand your thought process around build versus buy and the reasons for and against.
So I think that when you are just starting out with something, you probably want to make sure that you have the ability to understand, what am I actually trying to do here. So a great example for this could be, let's use a non-incident management example. Authorization is a great example for this. So I ran authorization over at GitHub. One of the things that we had to do was replace the authorization system without anybody noticing. And GitHub is a pretty decently large platform. If GitHub goes down, then no software engineer in the entire world gets to be able to do anything or open a pull request or review anything. So uptime was really important for us. That being said, we did have some issues previously of past mistakes, always come back and haunt us. So the original system wasn't designed to have the level of complexity that GitHub eventually did have. And so you have to weigh a lot of these different things as you are starting to design the systems that are going to scale with you. So if you have an idea of what you want and you have seen it done really, really well in previous places, then maybe buy would be a good choice for you, because you have to weigh in the cost of designing the system. You have to weigh in the cost of implementing it. You have to weigh in the cost of, maybe your engineers have never done this before, so they're not quite sure how to do it. What is the cost of the bugs that are going to come into play from all of these different sorts of scenarios that maybe you didn't have the expertise to understand what you're looking for? So in that case, particularly in something around authorization and that is very security focused, maybe a buy would be the best sort of situation in here. If it is too early for you to be investing in these types of things, that may be an over optimization that might that might just never come to fruition. And especially if you are an early stage startup, those early optimizations may also come and bite you in the behind later on because they just may not scale the way that you were originally expecting it to. So it's a lot of taking a look at what are you trying to do, what have you seen done really well before, who are the experts in this space, and where are you presently right now, and then where are you planning on getting to in the next 6 months, the next year, the next 3 years. All of these different things come into play as you are thinking about build versus buy. And sometimes the right case is to go with the experts. Sometimes it is maybe not right now. We're not in a space where we can support this type of thing. So it really just depends on what your organization's use case is.
Okay, interesting. Are you able to break down some of the components that you feel are really important to build enterprise ready features?
Mhm. I would say when you're building enterprise features, the most important thing is making sure that you're building it for the right reasons and you're building it for the right audience. So I think when people think about enterprises, it can become this sort of blob of large companies and maybe thinking that all large companies want the same exact thing, which is not necessarily true. You have to make sure that you have a clear idea of your ICP, your ideal customer profile. So, who is your buyer? Who is your daily user? Who is the person that might be affected by your product on a daily basis? They may not necessarily be your daily user, but they are still part of the decision making process. What sort of information do people need in order to make that decision? Who are your competitors in the space? How are you thinking about your branding story? These are all the things that come up front as you are building enterprise software. But also behind the scenes, when you are building out this software, people want to know, are you secure? Are you reliable? Are you going to have great performance? Are you going to be there when we are down? Or is this something that we're constantly going to have to go back and forth and say, what the heck is going on here? And that's not a great experience for anybody, in software, in life, in person. It's not great to have to go back and forth to somebody and say, like, why is this not working the way that I expect it to? So it might be slightly unpopular, but enterprise software is meant to be reliable and stable and honestly, perhaps a little bit boring. But that means that you are always going to be there. You are steady, you are there, and you're always going to have your customers back. And just making sure that those are the things that you are building towards. No surprises. Just it does exactly what you expect it to do, and it does it really, really, really well.
Boring, simple, and repetitive usually does mean successful in a lot of cases, not just software. Um, so I agree. I hear two parts. I hear an element of technology challenges. I hear an element of people and customer challenges, which are very specific to each business. You're probably right, as in categorizing it in terms of enterprises are just a business or huge businesses, and they all have the same problems. They don't. So separating the two, I think, is an important challenge. Can you talk to us about both on separate cases? In how do you really focus on customer challenges and reverse engineer those into building really good technology and systems behind those customer challenges? There's a lot there, but if we focus on customer challenges first and reverse engineering that into technology challenges, I think that'd be really useful to break that down.
Mhm. Yeah. So one of my favorite books is called Inspired by Marty Kagan. which is actually a product book. It's actually not an engineering book, but I recommend this to anybody that I work with because one of the most important things that we learned at Twilio is you have to wear the customer's shoes. You have to build the things that customers need and they want. Those are two separate things. What a customer wants is not necessarily what a customer needs. And so, a lot of the times in these conversations that you are having directly with customers, and I highly recommend that anybody in engineering should be on customer calls, is you have to ask, what are they trying to do? What is the problem that these folks are trying to solve? And, they may ask for certain things, but if you really start to dig into what are you trying to achieve, what is the problem that you're trying to solve, what's preventing you from doing this currently, what are the workarounds that you're currently trying to do, what sort of information does this go to, what sort of stakeholders are involved in this, what are their priorities, the more you start to dig into what are the customers needs, then you can see how they got to what they're asking for. And so if you have the clear idea of this is the customer need, this is the problem that they're trying to solve, then when you go back to the engineering whiteboard, you can then say, okay, this is our North Star. This is the thing that customers are talking about. We are seeing these trends across three of our biggest customers in this particular market. Now we know that this is a trend. One of my engineers said that, 1 point is not enough of a data. It's a single source, a single data source. 2 points, you can draw a line, but it can either be, exponential or it could be linear. When you have 3 points, now you're starting to see a trend. And so thinking about that as you are starting to build it, if you have one customer request, that may not be enough information for you to be building something. If you have two, okay, maybe you're starting to see a couple of patterns here. If you have three or more, you probably have a trend. And then you can start building towards meeting the needs of that particular trend. Now, it could, depends on the customer. They may be your biggest customer. They may be something that's an important logo that you may need to keep an eye on. But as you are building out your product North Star and what is the reason that we are building these things, what is the actual customer needs that we're trying to build here, looking out for those trends and looking through all of your customer data, talking directly with customers, building things iteratively and quickly with a steel thread, and then going back and getting feedback early on in the process, that is really all it takes to build good software. Validate what you're building directly with customers, build it iteratively, go back to the customers and say, is this what you were thinking about? Why or not? Watch people actually use the product. There's really nothing like actually watching somebody use the software that you've built and then realizing that they are using it completely differently from how you originally imagined it. And you're like, oh, 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 okay. I missed that. I really did. Okay, great. Now I see how real people use this, and it's not just this imaginary person in my head. These are the people that are using your software every single day. So you have to make sure that it is something that is useful and valuable to them because that's what we're here for. We're building things that customers need. That's the whole reason that we're in tech. And I think sometimes that can get lost.
There's a real art and finesse in that because you have your own way of how you would use the software that you've built, right? But I can imagine, and that was where my thought process was originally gravitating towards. Do you ship this fast? Do you get some feedback, and do you actually watch them use what you're building to really understand, do we need to iterate on this? But seemingly you do, and seemingly it's really, really helpful.
Mhm. Yeah. One of the more interesting blog posts that I've read fairly recently was around that steel thread. I forget the name of the author at this moment, but I'll send it to you afterwards. But having that idea of a steel thread in your project planning process. And that is that thinnest slice of vertical functionality from end to end. And it really struck a chord with me because as an engineer, you kind of want to think about the data model first, and then you got to think about the API, and then eventually you will put a UI on it, and then maybe it'll go to the designer, and then maybe it'll go to the product manager, who will then go to the customer. And sooner or later, it's 6 months later, and the thing that you built like is no longer effective. And I read that blog post, and I was like, you could have just said my name out loud. The next time you write this blog post, I feel personally called out. Um, and so it really sort of opened my eyes to, if you want to be able to ship quickly and you want to be able to validate your assumptions, particularly if you are in a startup, you want to be able to get something out in front of customers as quickly as possible. We as engineers sort of pride ourselves in, agile and iterative shipping and like continuous deployment. Um, but that tends to stop at the project level. And so I really encourage folks to read this article and think about, if you are truly putting something out there in front of customers, what's the easiest way and the fastest way to be able to do that. You want to give them something that they can play with. You want to see them break it in front of you so that you have that feedback. Feedback is a gift. And I think that as engineers, that's not always what we think about. But if a customer or a prospective customer gives us feedback that says, this isn't exactly what I was thinking about, that is such a gift because they can easily ghost us. And that is heartbreaking for anybody on the go to market side. It's heartbreaking on an engineering side because that means that the thing that you've built didn't actually mean what you thought that it meant. And so being able to put something in front of customers, having them be able to click around on it, even if it's a mock backend with dummy data, just having some sort of vertical slice of functionality that says this does this thing, what do you think about it? And then coming back the next week and saying, okay, we've improved upon it. We've added additional functionality. Is this continuing to go in the right direction? You start building up those points on that data graph, and you can see you are heading in the right direction. If you only have the beginning and the end, again, that's not a trend. That you could still be far off. And then by then, it's 6 months to a year later, and
It's too
you've
long.
you've it's too long and
On the
you've
flip
wasted
side
so
as
much
well, I
time
think
and
about that.
energy and resources. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm loving some of the depth and the context as well. We've spoken a bit about the customer side. It'd be great to understand about the technology side. We've spoken about steel threads. We need to build the right software that's well tested, maintainable, scalable. Talk to us about building complex software for, or even simple software for enterprise ready features. Then I want to try and understand how you mobilize teams in the right way to build the
Mhm.
right software.
Mhm. Yeah, I think complex software is really only about thinking through every single edge case and then understanding how far do you actually need to go in this particular scenario. So, in my experience, engineers are very good at this. They're very good at thinking about every single possible way that something can go wrong. The way that I think that it could be an issue is that time is finite and resources are finite. And so the folks that I love to work with have thought about every single possible use case. And I then have to be in the room and pull them back and say, okay, is that the problem that we are trying to solve today? Or could we potentially design the things that we are building to accommodate these concerns later on? So it is very good to make sure that you were thinking about how are we going to scale? What are the right indexes that we need to put on this database query? What are the things that we need to think about right now? Versus, do we need more information in order to build this out and scale in the way that we eventually need to get to? So, what are we keeping an eye on? What are the leading indicators that we need to know about to make sure that we are building things in a scalable manner. Now, if we've done extensive research with customers, which we did in particular with our product called Signals, which is our paging platform, we had a very, very clear idea of like, we need to be able to scale and handle all the pages that come through in the event that AWS goes down. So that is everybody's worst nightmare in tech. AWS goes down, how do you know about it? How do you handle the influx of issues? What systems are going to be up? And so we designed for these sorts of use cases in mind because we have had enough customer data in order to be able to make those issues successful. And then we go through and we test them. So when I first joined a year ago, one of the first things that I did was performance load testing, and I was like, okay, if our use case is we are the paging platform that will be there in the case AWS goes down, how are we going to test it? What are the escalation policies that we need to be able to test? Do we need to be able to test multi-region? Do we need to make sure that we can replicate across all the different regions that we are responsible for? How can we fail gracefully in the event that one portion of our code base is just hard down? How can we still make sure that we are delivering alerts? How do we make sure that we are alert ourselves in the event that our own platform goes down? So really making sure that we're testing every single possible way that things could go down when it is ready for prime time. Really making sure that those paths are set and that they can scale as much as you possibly can. And then you have your numbers of like where the edges are, and then how do you keep pushing on those edges as you continue to build features out, as you continue to work on your query performances, keeping an eye on, all right, if we're going to be testing this out, what do we need to be testing this? How often are we going to be testing this? What kind of load are we going to be throwing at our own systems to make sure that we can handle anything that our customers are going to handle?
Love that. Love that. Talk to us a little bit about mobilizing your teams as well internally. Really keen to understand even the makeup or the separation of the teams, how maybe they interact as well.
Mhm. So, my engineering team is a it's pretty small but mighty team. Everybody is a an application engineer. Everybody has a very clear sense of what are we doing and why are we doing it. So, a lot of the things that we do talk about, taking that enterprise hill, making sure that we are very close to the customer. It's very clear what everybody needs to be doing because it's very clear what the priorities are. And at some point, you also have to be clear about what is not a priority. And so I find that to be one of the biggest barriers to, having a motivated team is like if everything is a priority, then nothing is a priority, which means that it doesn't. We don't really know what we're doing here. We don't know why this is important. But if people have meaning behind the work that they're doing, if people can see the tangible results of the thing that they just spent time building, and they know that if they have the ability to say, we need to slow down on this area because of X, Y, and Z. Or, we can have some sort of agency in the project planning process, then people have meaning in their everyday life, which means that they're a lot more, on board with the things that you're trying to build there. So if you have engineers in customer calls, if you have engineers, heavily involved in the project planning process and making sure that everybody knows why we are doing the things that we're doing, if you invest in people's careers, if you invest in people's livelihoods, and you treat them like people and you help them grow, like it seems, simple, but it is a lot of coordination, it's a lot of hard work, it's a lot of investment in making sure that the people that you have here are really the reason why we exist as a company. And so it's not just the people that work for you, it is your team, it is the people that you are there in the trenches with every single day. So make sure that you are investing in those people, in their careers and in their livelihoods, so that they, feel motivated to give the same energy back.
Okay. There's some great words, and I can really feel your ethos come through when it comes to building software. You know, whether it be your product north star, whether it be your prioritization, really focus on the things that matter today and how that translates into how you mobilize your teams and getting your teams as a collective focusing on the right things and creating some meaning with what they're building as well, and get them directed at that product north star. I can really feel that, and it almost like feels quite triangular, in all honesty, from product, technology, team, and they all touch one another. So I can really feel that in your ethos, which I think is important. I'm not sure if you meant to deliver that in that way, but it's spot on.
Yeah. I think that when we get caught up in the day to day, it can be really easy to only focus on one particular area. Um, but a business works together. And, I originally came from marketing. And so I also work very closely with the go to market side of the house because, in my opinion, you can build great software, but if you don't have the right messaging behind it, if you don't have the right people out there selling it, no
No one
one's going to
knows about
use
it.
it. Right, exactly. And so I think that all different parts of not only product design and engineering need to get along, but all different parts of the business. Like we are all here for one reason, which is to serve our customers. How we do it is very different, but we're all here, rowing in the same direction. We're all here building the same things together, and, if you get kind of caught in the day to day, it can get really easy to maybe blame other folks for not doing what you think that they should be doing. But I'm always a huge advocate of like just talk to that person. Try and see what their motivations are. Try to see what problems they're trying to solve. And maybe you keep in mind that we're all here on the same team. We're all here to build products for our customers. How we do it is just very different.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. Can you talk to us a little bit about that direction that you're all going in and what the next 12 months looks like for Fire Hydrant? You've done some exciting stuff recently. Acquisition, there's been some funding. Great. Series B now. Talk to us about the next 12 months and what we might be able to see. You don't have to share secret sources or things that betray business confidence, but it'd be good to
Mhm.
know what might be on the horizon.
Yeah. So some of the things that we are working on are really building features for the enterprise. So really shoring up our security, our identity management, dealing with some of the areas of our product that maybe we started with that haven't quite grown with us. We actually have some pretty exciting product launches coming up, I believe, in a month or so, to really sort of build for some of the biggest things that our customers have been asking for, some of the biggest integrations that they've been wanting to see from us for a very long time. And with the Blameless acquisition, sort of helping those folks migrate on over to the Fire Hydrant platform, making sure that they are feeling heard, making sure that we are building the things and the features that they are expecting. So, sort of bringing the best of both worlds together. So Blameless was an amazing platform. They did some things that, quite frankly, they did better than we did in certain areas. And so with the teams combining, we get that the best of both worlds where we get to see, okay, what worked on either side, what didn't work, what can we learn from one another, what can we build within the Fire Hydrant platform, that, shown in the Blameless side, that we can now bring over to the Fire Hydrant side now that we are one team. So that is super exciting. Really sort of um, building out signals as our best in class feature, and making sure that, if you're down, then we're still up, and we can deliver all of the alerts that you need, in order to make sure that people are successful in their technology, and their businesses. So it's a lot of really exciting stuff over here. And I'm excited to be looking forward and making sure that we are building out the right things and scaling them appropriately.
Love it. We'll be back talking to you in the next 12 months, that's for sure. But what I hear loud and clear, onboarding more customers, game changing features from some of what your customers have been asking for a long time now. I won't go guessing for you to confirm or deny, but people are just going to have to check out the Fire Hydrant platform to see what they are. That's a good humble brag, I think. But continuing to grow in the right way and serving customers are really the three, four things that I hear loud and clear. You've been phenomenal talking to us a lot about your previous experience, ethos, mantra, and how you're building Fire Hydrant in the right way. Before you go, tell the platform a little bit about what you might be hiring for over the next 12 months. People will be listening and people want to understand where they can play their part, if they can play their part, and how they can go about applying or speaking to someone internally at the team.
Yeah. So right now I have 3 full-time recs that are open. 2 are for senior engineers on the Rails side. So we are a Rails shop for our incident management platform. And then I do have 1 rec that is open for a senior Go engineer, which is what our Signals product is built in. So looking for people who have a strong background in back-end engineering, who love working with APIs, making sure that they are performant, that they are building the things that they would want to be using as their own, in their own projects, and sort of helping us build, things that matter to folks and being part of that decision making process. So if you're interested in coming and joining a team that can build stuff for people, talking directly with customers, seeing that impact of your work, come on by. We've got a couple of recs open. They are on my LinkedIn, and you can message me there.
Love it. I hear Ruby folks, Go folks. If you're customer focused, mission driven, you've built performant backends, you should definitely be filling up Danielle's DMs and reaching out
Mhm.
to her.
Yeah.
Again, like I said, you've been phenomenal. Thank you so much. For everyone listening, likes, shares, subscribership, all of that good stuff keeps this little ecosystem buzzing and going around and getting an opportunity to speak to Danielle and other people. So continue to do that. And again, Danielle, a massive thanks.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
Hey guys, thanks for watching this episode. Massively appreciate you listening and checking in with us. If you want to find out more about us and what we're doing, please check us out on social media. What we're trying to do at Engineers is build a community to drive knowledge sharing and experiences. On Twitter, we can be found Engineers.io. It's no underscore. We've also got a website which is engineers.io. These links will all be posted in the description. Any feedback and comments are massively appreciated. We're always looking to improve on where we can. Thanks, guys.